Okay. So today I just want to, I'm not sure where everybody's level is of knowledge on the system. So just going to briefly go over how to access the tools and then spend more time in updating the account information, as well as adding services and some of the things that we've added. So there's a variety of ways you can get to the tools, but you can start out with one way is to go to My Dashboard and go to the Customer Support Center, or you can also go to, let me just show you where to find this. Like if you're in Illinois workNet, you click on Partners, and you can go down to the different program area and click on the Returning Citizen Partner Guide. It has a variety of tools and instructions and resources that are available. You can click on this link to go directly to the tools. And then this webinar and other webinars are right here, the archived webinars, as well as some related resources. So we are going to look at test people. So you click on the link, you go to your returning citizens listing. Some people have entered customers directly. We've also added people from the back end. If you're going to add customers, you just click Add Customers, fill out the required fields, and they will be added to your list. If you already have customers that have been added to the system, you will see them in your list, and you can select, you can sort, filter, you can, search, filter, these little things right here, sort people or sort columns by the content that's in there. So your people that have been uploaded from the back end, they don't have an IWDS status as of right now, because they were just uploaded into Illinois workNet and that connection hasn't been made. And so we have, I'm going to click on a person, my test person. Actually, I think I already have this one up. Yep. And when you go to the person, actually, let me start over here. When you go to the person, you're going to start with an overview list, and it has, just kind of like a checklist of things that, need to be accomplished. And then we haven't used this yet, but this integrated resource team or service integration team is going to be used more so whenever you are, like working with transitioning the offender back into their community. But you can still identify the different people who are working specifically with this customer right there on the overview page. They're going to default to active, and then you can, if they are no longer participating in the program, you can select one of these other options, and you'll be able to see their participant history. So if they were accidentally exited, no big deal, not the end of the world. You just click them back to active. So that's pretty self-explanatory for the overview page. The checklist page, you'll see has the same section as what's on the overview page, because again, whenever we go to these pages, we want people to know, kind of what still needs action, what needs to be updated. So you can go into the checklist page, and under DOC profile information, if you have information that still needs to be filled out, you can enter that here. So you just click edit, and you can edit the information that's in here. The one thing that we added later that is on Cody's checklist of things to do is to add the enrollment date. So the enrollment date was added after this page was created, and I didn't have him put it into this profile, so so that will be added in case you needed to update it for whatever reason. We have the profile information to sync with IWDS. In some cases, people have already put their customers in OEA 90. And if that's the case, you could just click on you have to have your first name, last name, the SOCH number. So if you didn't include the SOCH number whenever you added the customer, then you can include it here, and birth date. And then what you do is click search for customer in IWDS. In this case, it's saying I can't find the IWDS account with the matching SSN. So that means that this person's not in IWDS in OEA 90. So what you can do is you can click the edit button, you can fill out the other required fields, and then you can submit the information to IWDS. And what that will do is it'll submit the information into OEA 90 and create a initial application as an inquirent, and then the remaining, really in-depth, detailed information on that's needed to certify the application in IWDS will need to be entered in IWDS. So the point is, either one of these you can use as a starting point. I believe if you go through the search for customers in IWDS, one of the things I noticed was it wasn't pulling in every single field, which I know that we already have that connection made in IWDS. And so Jonathan was making that update. So don't worry about that. Just make the connection in IWDS if you're putting the person in there. If you're not, don't worry about it. But I don't want you to have to do duplicate entry for that, because I have to look at my list. I can't remember if he's already fixed that or not. But if he hasn't, we can just do a sync all at one time and populate those fields. So if you know you already entered that information in for OEA 90 and IWDS, don't worry about it. We'll just do a mass sync. The other areas for this checklist, it's really meant to, these are the questions that whenever we talk to the different partners involved, it's like, okay, so what are some of the things that you need to talk to them about in order to help make sure that they're putting them in the right training programs? And so it was broken into explore careers and training programs, job search, transition for release. Of course, now these are working on sending them back to their communities and schedule an appointment. So we had started out in a couple ways, and it ended up working itself into this checklist. So you can go into explore careers and hit edit, and it walks you through the different processes of what are some of the things that are going to motivate them, their career choices for second, third, what types of work are they interested in doing, what are other types, what are your hobbies, what are some of your skills and strengths, what motivates you, what are some things I think you'll make it hard for you to get a job. You can update that information and then save it. And then regardless if you're working with another partner, then they can, you don't have to ask these same questions 15 times. You can see what has already been asked. Maybe you're, working, together, to work with these customers. So if they've already asked some of these questions, at least you'll go ahead and you'll see the responses already here, so you don't have to wonder if somebody's already gone through this information. So the same thing goes with job search. You're going to find out their education credentials, work history, and all that kind of good stuff. Oh, another thing that was added, that little things, like if you notice there are some things that aren't in here and you have found it to be very helpful when working with these customers, then let us know. Like, for example, upload a letter of conviction. Like I wouldn't have known anything about that, but that's one of the things that as working with this population, has been brought to our attention that it's very helpful, and it should be uploaded and included. So if you see something that's missing, please let us know. If you see something that is like, this doesn't really seem like it really works for this population, you can let us know that as well. One of the suggestions, which I think is an excellent suggestion, especially since this population doesn't have access typically to the internet, and or it may be hard for you as a provider to access the internet, was to have this so that it could be a printed out form. We can definitely work on having a printed out form. Ultimately, depending on how the, what happens in the future, where they want the priorities to be, what I think would be great is to be able to do this like as a PDF form. So that you could just fill it out and then upload it in the system, and it automatically update the field. So we're not there yet. But if you come up with different ideas like that you think would make working and collecting this type of information easier when working with this population, we are definitely open for suggestions. We can't make any promises that we're going to be able to implement it, but we definitely want to hear suggestions. Okay, same thing with transition for release. Again, with each of these, we have areas. We have complete survey, but it's just a link at this point in time. We don't have the actual approved survey, so you don't really have to worry about this at this time. But if this is something that we want the group decides to move forward with, then we'll be adding that link here, and then we'll let you know when that's available. But at this time, just know that it's kind of a placeholder, and we'll let you know when that's available. And then we are working on getting a listing of contact people who would be the point person for whenever, across the state, whenever they're going to, move, and let's say, they're in Murfreesboro and they're going up to Chicago. Then, you would know who to contact in Chicago, and then they would work on setting that appointment up with either with that particular person or with another career planner. So that's where we're going with this section. I just wanted to make sure that you know that we don't have that list set up yet, but I know that there are, they're working on identifying those individuals. And so once we have them into the system and get them trained, they can go ahead and enter an appointment date, and then you'll have this tool that's available for you. Otherwise, you can go ahead and as they're being released, you can note if they're declined referral to MSR, OEA, moved out of state, or other. I guess at this point in time, since we don't have this appointment area set up, the best option would probably be to choose other. Okay. Let me go ahead and get that up. Okay. And then we do have the print button here. So that's the checklist. The career plan, each of these folks are starting out with a populated career plan. And these were based on when the group that was working with the initial planning identified the basics steps and services that needed to be filled out for each of these folks, because these populate, let me see, the management report. It's used to populate this management report. And it was agreed upon that these are the fields that that they wanted to see an overview on. So we needed a way to collect that information, and the career plan is how we're doing that. Okay, so just note that it does populate a management report. All these people are starting out with each of these items, so it's not something that you have to go in and add any of these. You could leave this as is if you wanted to, or you could, if you want to add more goals, you are welcome to do that. You just go set goals, add a new goal. It's a goal statement category, which is, you can see support services, career plan, education training plan, or short-term or long-term goal. And then I would just say, you're going to start it off as not started. Once you add the goal, then you can add additional steps. Now we try to, this is a little bit older one, all of the people in production have the exact same career plan right now. And it's based on the bare basic steps. But we also have a list of other steps that you can choose from. So you can see the ones that are already in the plan have a check mark next to them. And this is test. So this isn't the comprehensive list, but the comprehensive list is in production. So you can see if you wanted to add another service, then you can add it here. It's going to say, okay, you added me. Now where do you want me? So tell me where you want me. And so you can select a goal, and then you add in the required information. And then you just do update customer service, and it will move it to the area where you said to move it to. So I'm pretty sure I said move it into transition for your community. And there it is. Okay, if you're like, oops, I really didn't want to do that, you can delete it. Or the other one that comes up is we have pre-populated with the vocational education and work-based learning services that, they're already in here, but they're going to do one or the other. So if they're like, well, okay, I'm making the assumption they would do one or the other. I guess they could do both. But whichever one that you don't want, you just click to delete it, and there you go. So we tried to make it as easy as possible, starting out with a baseline set of services in their career plan. So as you go through each of these, initially and set up the planning part of it, that whatever you can do as a partner in your area, then you update it. Now there are some things that you're going to have to get from the Department of Corrections, and it's mainly those first two or three areas. I'm going to show you how to get to this report in two different ways. Okay, it's called a services report. We put this together so that you could do like a mass update of customers at one time and upload it, and try to make it as easy as possible for your partners that you're working with that may not want to get into Illinois WorkNet into the system. So on your returning citizens, we have a services report, okay? Or you could use this little icon up here, and it gives you like a full list of reports. So since I'm going to try and stay within my little returning citizens world here, I'm going to click on the services report. Now, because of who I'm logged in as, and some of you are going to be in the same situation, you are going to see that there are multiple projects, okay? That's because this services report is a global tool. I would call it a global tool that's used across programs in Illinois WorkNet. And so if you have access to additional programs, what you're going to do is select returning citizens, and then it'll default to you, whoever you are, or if you have access to multiple, then you'll be able to narrow it down by the grantee, and then filter. And so you're going to get this overall report, okay? So you're going to see this is attend cognitive behavior groups, attend orientation, mandatory life skills, complete assessment, and select programs under social work guidance requisition form. You know, these aren't tied to things that are in IWDS because these are the ones that are coming from Department of Corrections. Now you can see again, this is test. So you can see how many people don't have it started, how many do, how many are successfully completed, not complete, unsuccessfully completed, and total number of customers with the step and total customers without the step. So at least for your initial group, unless you've removed that step from that person, then they all should be this total customers with the step or service. This is also a troubleshooting tool. So whenever you're looking at the management report and you're like, why is my number off? Why do I have like, you know, 21 people, but only 19 of them have the customer? Why do only 19 people have this step? You can come here and like, oh, these two, and you click on those two, and then you can add it back in. No big deal. Or add it in. But at least, you know, this is, again, is a troubleshooting tool as well as a report. So let's just say that I'm working with Department of Corrections and I need to have these two people, maybe they don't need it. So I'm just going to go with these 19 and I'm going to click this list of people. I have a couple of options. You can see that I can update this information right here. Like I can see that some of these people have it planned and not started. Actually, everybody has it not planned and not started. But if I chose all 19, I'd be able to see, you know, these different statuses, okay? So if I say I'm gonna work and say, okay, my DOC partner, what I'm gonna do is, you know, I'm gonna try and make this as easy as possible. So if you could, I'm gonna print out this, I'm not gonna print it out, I'm gonna download this Excel file and it has the person's first name, last name. And if we need to have something else in here, like their another like Department of Corrections ID or some other ID in here, then that's fine, just let us know. But for starting out, because this is a global update, a global tool, we haven't included those types of details. But you know, if that's what you need, then that's what you need. So what they can do is update these fields. Let's see, I'm just going to make them all. And this would have to be like started. And the due date we'll say is, these are like the required fields. So they would say do 12, 15. I'm just gonna do all these the same. Hopefully, double check these, started / open. So we'd have to, you know, give them a little bit of instruction on like what to put here in these fields. I'd love to be able to make it where it would automatically, like they could select from a drop down. I just don't think that's going to work for this round. Okay, so then I'm going to do file, save as, I'll put it on my, I can put it in downloads, it's fine. So they update the information. I'm going to import. Line number 2 does not claim that auto. Okay, so it tells me what I did wrong. Hold on, where did you go? Line number 2 does not include all the required fields. I should have tested this out on my own person, just double checking since I'm trying to do it in a hurry. Okay, let's cut these folks out. I don't really want to have to go through and update everybody. Okay. Hold on. Let me close this out. Make sure I saved it. The services were uploaded. Okay. So there are a couple little quirks that we have to make sure that they just know is like we would have to give them kind of like maybe like a general set, like simple set of instructions so that they know what these different statuses are. So they can either leave them as they are, or we just need to tell them to either change it to started/open or successful completion, and then to delete any of the fields where they don't have all the required information, or you could take a look at that and clean that up before you actually import it. But the whole idea is that they don't have to get into the system. You can say, I want to know of all these 30 or 100 people, how many have actually completed the Attend Cognitive Behaviors group, and then they could just go through, if nothing else, go through the start date or end date if it's complete, and then you can help them, whatever they can make it. Hopefully it's easy to put in the number of weekly hours that's required. So this is a way to mass update your customers instead of having to go into each of their career plans and update the information. Any questions or thoughts on that? You guys are a quiet group.
Natasha, can you hear me?
Yes.
So both start date and due date are required. So tell me about those again. This may have been in a discussion when we were setting this up and planning it, but we're making both start date and due date required.
That's part of the system because it's supposed to be a plan. You know what I mean? Because whenever you go to their actual, let me see if I have a tab open. Let me find that. Let me get to a customer and their career plan real quick. Actually, should be able to just go like straight to this person. And you can see it's just part of it's part of like putting together the plan. So when you look at the career plan, you're going to see like start and end dates, like your due date. So they know when that task should be completed by. And then whenever you're actually complete, then if I change this to complete, then I have to put the completion date.
Okay.
And then weekly hours was something that was required by IWDS. And then also a lot of times with DHS, they have to know like how many hours they're supposed to, they're like planning, like planned hours, because it's supposed to be a plan. The requirement for weekly hours, it's required at this time, but the more work we do with IWDS, it may or may not be. But right now it is.
So let's say an incarcerated offender gets transferred to a life skills reentry center and arrives this week. So the due date would be the date that this person is expected to attend cognitive behavior groups.
Well, I don't know. I would say that would be your start date, because they're going to start on Friday, let's say, and they're going to attend these cognitive behavior groups for what, a month, 2 months, a week, a day?
So is the due date for
the projected end date?
Okay, the due date is the system date when one of us needs to come back and do an update.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, because you're putting together plans, so you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go to class, from January to May, and then I'm going to go to a different class from June through August. You know what I mean? It's like the projected end date. So, or especially with, like say writing your resume. Well, okay, you're gonna start it on Monday, and I expect you to have it done in a week. So then your due date would be Friday.
Okay.
But good question, because I like the fact, is that like you were right with saying you're like planning, because they're not there yet. But for this case, I would say, since it is the life skills reentry group, the start date is when they actually start, and the projected end date would be like, because I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how long they're in these cognitive behavior groups. Maybe it's the entire time. Maybe it's, for a month. I don't know.
All right. So eventually, once the due date is met, the due date and the end date, would it be logical that they would then be the same?
I mean, that would be great, unless they finish something earlier.
Okay.
Then if they finish early, then the end date is whatever the end date is. If something happens and it's past due, the end date may, would fall afterwards. It's okay. It's nothing. It's like planned versus actual.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good questions. Any other questions? I have instructions out there for the customer. Excuse me. I have so many tabs open. These are on the full list of customers. So we have information for adding the customer to the system, documenting the customer's plans and progress. So that'd be like your career plan. We just have a generic career plan rubric, and then you can see, I know many of these folks can't view their information yet because they have to be able to have internet access to do that. But know that they will have a view of it when they get to a point where they can look at their account. And so it's also available to anyone. So if they're moving on to their mandatory service, supervised release, county, those folks that have been given access to view the information, like their LWIA or other, like Title I partners versus some of the other partners, whoever's been given access to this system will be able to view the career plan, and then they could continue to use the career plan once, if they choose to do so, between that team of people and the customer. They could continue to use it as well. And what am I forgetting? Am I forgetting to tell you guys something else? Just know that, remember that the career plan is where updating those services, one of the things that's important is because it does update the management report. And so we'll want to know that. And if you have people that are in LWIA 90, find my list here. If you have people that are in LWIA 90, you can start to see how many people are synced up with those customers in LWIA 90. So basically everybody's going into Illinois WorkNet, but not everybody's going into LWIA 90. And that's okay, but they want to be able to see this report where they can see the difference, like of all the people who are just in the program, what have they done, what services have they received. Also, any of the services that are in IWDS that are populating, they will populate Illinois WorkNet, and so you'll be able to see those services that have been provided to that person as well. I can't remember if this person is an inquiring or what they are. Looks like they don't have a, what says registrant? It might just have, I don't know, remember what service was put in here for this test person. But they would populate the outcomes area as well. Alrighty, well, that's all I have. If you have any questions, please let me know. I still am working on finalizing the instructions for the services report, but the other career plan and information to get everybody started, and I think there's enough information to get working on and to update their checklist, start working with that, give us some feedback on that. Updating the career plan, and then I will get these this set of instructions wrapped up.
So Natasha, could you go over when something is entered into Illinois WorkNet? You've covered some of this today and in the past, but what fields populate into Illinois Workforce Development System, and then the opposite direction, if something is entered into IWDS, does any of it flow into Illinois WorkNet? Because we have new people on the call. We have people on the call that that are been through some of the training, but just go over that a little bit so that we're even if it's a review, I think it would be helpful.
Okay, so you're going to enter your person, regardless of what happens. Your person needs to be added to Illinois WorkNet. So when they're added to Illinois WorkNet, there has to be the connection made between Illinois WorkNet and IWDS. And the way we do that is by the person's first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number, right? And so when you go to their checklist, you'll have your profile information, and then it says profile information to sync with IWDS. So if you have first name, last name, social number, date of birth, you can do, and they have to be in LWIA 90. So first name, last name, social security number, you can search for the customer in IWDS. And this says, this person doesn't have an account in IWDS that matches this social security number. So one of two things could be going on. Either the incorrect social security number was entered into the system, and if that's the case, you hit edit and you update the information. And if that's not the case, that this is the correct social security number, know that they're not in LWIA 90. And if they are in LWIA 90, they're not using the correct social security number. or date of birth, just it could be date of birth, social security number, or, that kind of thing. But the big number that it really goes off of is a social number. And so if you don't have the information in there, you have a couple options. You could either go through and enter it into IWDS and then search for customers, or you could fill out the information that is here. And so it's these fields right here. Here's a condensed view of it. These are all the fields right here that we have that are populating IWDS. Populate IWDS or can be pulled from IWDS. So if you populate it here, submit the information to IWDS, it'll create an inquirent application account, whatever you want to call it, in IWDS. Eligibility is done through IWDS, so we populate out all the fields that we can, and then the remaining fields that are required for certification would need to be done in IWDS. So that's eligibility and certification. This uses what's called an API to send the information. Then once there's the connection, let me go, there's a customer here. This is in test again, so once they are in IWDS, you can see that there's this sync with IWDS. So when we send information to IWDS in this checklist application intake format, it uses the API. Then every night we sync with IWDS. So what the syncing does, it looks at case notes, and it also looks at services. And so if you update something in IWDS, if you update something in IWDS today, and you're looking in the outcomes or you're looking wherever, and you're like, I don't see that, then you can hit the sync with IWDS and it'll update this customer's information on the fly. If you are, this is taking a little while. Doesn't usually take this long, but you never know what you get in test. So anyway, so the things that we sync with are services. So Illinois workNet does not populate services in IWDS, but we can pull them in. We do populate case notes. And if you enter in an assessment from Illinois workNet, then it populates IWDS as a case note. So the only two things that we populate in IWDS is the application or intake form and case notes. Other than that, we pull information from IWDS, such as, well, it depends on what the project is, but I think we can pull employment from IWDS as long as it was entered in by the career planner. We pull in measurable skills gains from IWDS. We pull in credentials from IWDS, and we pull in services from IWDS. But the main thing to know is that what Illinois WorkNet is used as the communication tool and planning tool, because when you're working with the other partners, they don't have access to IWDS, and you don't have access to their systems. And so using Illinois WorkNet gives you a common space that you can coordinate your service activities, so you're not duplicating the same service for that customer, and you have visibility of what's been done and where they are, and so forth, and to be used as a planning tool, and then plus other things like they can do their resumes in Optimal. I know that again they don't have access to the internet, but you know there's other tools that can be used for this person once they get out.
This is Mark again. I've had a couple of questions about case notes, and I just want to make certain that I'm understanding correctly. A case note can be entered into Illinois WorkNet, and when it's synced with IWDS, it will also populate a case note in IWDS. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then if a career planner has somebody in training and they're in IWDS local area 90, if they put a case note into IWDS, does it populate Illinois WorkNet?
Yes.
All right. That is good, and that was there. And you know, every time I ask a question, you know, some of the people on the call or some of the people who use the system may know the answer to it, but I had a couple of people who were uncertain about that, and it may just be in our local area, but that's very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember the exact field and the way it comes through, but I think you can see by looking in IWDS, you can tell it's coming from WorkNet, because I think it populates it as either like Illinois WorkNet API or something like that. And within IWDS, I can't remember, but you can tell it's coming from Illinois WorkNet.
Yeah, that's fine. That might be helpful in some cases, but yeah, that's good.
And then we do also, I can't remember where it is because I don't have it on this particular test person, but somewhere it usually says like source is like either WorkNet or IWDS. So maybe we don't have source on this, but you can tell. I can't remember the details. I'd have to look at an existing example.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. If not, that's all I have at this time. So, yep, just give me a call, or if you notice anything like you know, I don't know, if something's not syncing the way you expect it to be, then let me know. So we do testing on the test side of it, but it's always helpful to see things on production side too. Seems like there's always something that pops up, difference between test and production. So just let us know and we'll take care of it right away.
Tammy Stone, do you have anything?
No, I don't. I think with, you know, you guys know how to input IWDS, and this is just a 90. So as long as you're putting these people in 90, that you're actually counting an IWDS, that's good. And then everybody else needs to be in the WorkNet system.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and, you know, we'll probably reach out, Natasha and I, and work on with everybody on an individual basis, too, just to make sure that it's, you know, it's clear what's going on. Especially on the uploading services that Department of Corrections is doing. And IDES, whatever services they're doing.
All right. Well, with that, I think everybody have a great rest of your day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.